Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever.
Right on.
Shotgun. DC right. Flip 90. Dig. On the center. Ready?
We're gonna play football. Yippee!
The CFB on OSG with your host, the Online Sports Guys.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Review. It's the Online Sports Guys talking college football, the OSG on CFB, if you will. I am Brother Phil. This is Brother Nelson and Brother Wilkie, all here. The band's all here. We have plenty of college football to talk about, guys, because guess what?
We had games.
We had games.
Week 0.
Okay, all right. So before we go any further, I get into this argument with Tommy Palmer, who is a part of the commentary here on the network.
And the voice of God.
Voice of God.
The voice of OSG.
He is. And Tommy thinks that this is week 1 across the board. I maintain that 1 minus 1 is 0, therefore it should be week 0. But Tommy thinks that week 1 is week 0, which means it's week 1. Where is your math on all of this?
It's a semantic argument. I mean, originally when the schedule started this year, the Florida-Miami game wasn't even scheduled to be played this week. It got moved back because ESPN, who owns college football, wanted it moved back. And having Arizona and Hawaii kick off the season in Hawaii, everybody kicks off the season a week early in Hawaii, so that doesn't really count. Wilkie, what do you think?
Well, I understand that people have been itching for football, and this is a good way to kind of scratch that itch a little bit. But to me, it's week 0. If they want to market it week 0, that's fine. I mean, it was a good showcase game for Miami and Florida. It was a good in-state rivalry. If you listen to the college football debrief
game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you listen to the college football debrief, we had Joe Zagacki on, the voice of the Miami Hurricanes, and he was talking about how these two teams rarely play each other, and this is kind of a special deal for the state of Florida. And well, actually, it was a game, but it wasn't much of a game.
So there's that.
Yeah. But I mean, if they want to call it week 0, call it week 0. I mean, that's fine. If you can market it, that's great. I mean, I got no qualms with it, but it's a good way to break the ice to a season.
Since we started mentioning the Florida-Miami game, it looked like a week 0 game. Really, it looked like a first exhibition game in the NFL where everybody hasn't quite gotten their feet underneath them, their timing down, or pretty much anything else. Yeah, Florida won the game 24-20, but man, oh boy, were there some brutal plays in that game. Felipe Franks for Florida looked like he hasn't progressed at all.
No, and the tackling was horrendous for both
tackling.
teams.
You're assuming that you're going to call that tackling. The tackling was non-existent, and right now, apparently, the joke was that Florida's tackling had been portaled.
What's Miami's excuse? And they got a pretty good defense.
Well, I know. And when you saw what Shaq Quarterman was trying to do, and it was worse than ugly. It was horrendous fundamental football.
You know, I mean, we go back and we talk about how we want our plan to win and how we want to win games. We certainly didn't do that tonight. With turning the ball over, with not scoring touchdowns when we get down in the red zone, some critical penalties at critical times. We had some missed tackles. But I'm going to tell you what, our guys compete. They competed and they competed and they kept competing and kept battling. And it seemed like we had to win the game about 4 different times. But we continued to do that.
But for those of us who are the Florida State alums on the show, watching 2 teams in orange, got a good laugh out of it.
I'm sure you did.
I did.
Yeah, Frank's
Well, go ahead, Phil.
Franks threw for 254 and 2 scores, but he had a couple of turnovers as well.
Some bad interceptions in the second half.
That was
Yeah,
tough.
And
Damn.
one, Miami had a perfect opportunity to capitalize on and missed a field goal. And that, to me, just kind of took all the momentum away that Miami was generating in that second half and moved on. And, Florida barely survived.
It was a game filled like most opening games like this were with a ton of mistakes from both teams. And ultimately it came down to a couple red zone possessions, and they were able to capitalize. We were not able to capitalize, and ultimately that was the difference in the ball game.
The other quarterback for Miami, Jaron Williams, the game plan was perfect for him. Short intermediate throws, and don't make mistakes. And he didn't make any mistakes.
But he got sacked 10 times.
He got sacked a lot because that offensive line was awful. And to me, that if you're looking for one thing that killed Miami besides that missed field goal, the offensive line had Jaron Williams running for his life. And there's not much you can do when you're running for your life all the time, which Jaron Williams was. And 19 of 29 for 214 and a touchdown. When you're thrown into a starting job for the first time against an in-state rival in a neutral site, I'll take that any time. And it looks like Miami's got a running back because DJ Dallas came as good as advertised. And Miami's offense is fine, except for that line. And that has to be addressed.
When you've got a freshman left tackle who was completely getting victimized the entire night, and he was fighting uphill all night long. And then when they figured out that all they had to do was go out to the edge, rush, and bring pressure that way, and bring him into the quarterback and into the pocket where he was getting blown out, especially third and fourth quarter, it presented a lot of problems for Miami offensively. And you got to give Dan Enos a lot of credit, because early on in the game, short controlled passes, it's just as good as a run. They sit there, you do the little dump off, you get 2 or 3 yards, as long as you get 10 feet at a time, doesn't matter how you do it 3 times, that's a first down. So I really give Dan Enos a lot of credit for getting Williams engaged in the game by trying to get him into some kind of a rhythm.
Getting some kind of rhythm and not putting him in a position to fail.
Right.
And that was perfect. It was a perfect game plan for Miami in that regard. And Jaron Williams executed it perfectly. And being able to have confidence in the receiving core. Brevin Jordan was huge in this game, as he's expected to be this year. And he proved to me that he is a big time tight end. And then don't forget about KJ Osborne from Miami. He was my pick to click when Anthony Goldman and I previewed this game in the debrief, and he did what he had to do. He had 4 catches for 41 yards and moved the chains a couple of times. So the all MAC receiver is finding out that the Power 5 league, he can survive in it. Let's think of the fan bases here, because as you know, after week 1 or week 0 or first game of the year, we'll say, the overreaction time is by the fans is on a scale of 10, it's a 13.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're Miami, yeah, you lost the game to an in-state rival, but you should feel pretty good about that. There are a lot of good things. Yeah, you're going to call into Joe Rosa's show in Miami and complain about the offensive line. But other than that, you got a quarterback, you got a running back, and you got 3 pretty good receivers, and you got a defense that now has the game under its belt. Fundamentally, they should be better from now on. Now, I mean, let's face it, the tackling was pretty grotesque, but Miami was.
You're assuming there was tackling.
Yes, but Miami, I thought did a serviceable job, and they'll get better because there's so much talent there. If you're a Florida fan, you got to be
a little worried.
Yeah, you're really worried because you don't see much improvement at all from the bowl game last year to this game. Felipe Franks was hyped as being a much improved quarterback. He kind of proved it toward the end of the season last year, and he kind of fell back on bad habits. And, the defense, which has really been the rock that of Florida's, of that program, again, grotesque tackling. I think it's going to be the word of the day for this game.
Choice C, none of the above.
And there were few bright spots for the Gators. Kadarius Toney with a 66-yard run after a short pass catch was impressive. He gives them an option and something that the Gators have lacked over the last couple of seasons. So that's a positive for them. But yeah, you're right. Frank's sure put up, at the end of the day, if you look at the box score, you see he went, 17 for 27 or something like that.
Yes.
254, 2 TDs, 2 interceptions, and a fumble or two. That's okay. But if your end game is to be competitive with the University of Georgia in the SEC East, I don't know that that's necessarily going to be enough.
Well, he had a really good first half. We'll give him that. Second half was a whole different story. He made, the 2 interceptions in the second half could have cost him the game. And those are just mistakes you cannot make in critical parts of the game. So if you're a Florida fan, yeah, the overreaction is, again, way up there. And there's got to be some concern.
Yeah, last note here before we wrap up, talk about this first game of week 0. Did you guys notice somebody who was up in the stands at the game, besides the old ball coach? I'm sitting there wearing a Florida blue polo shirt.
Would that be Urban Meyer?
It would be the Urbanator.
The Urbanator wearing his Florida colors. And I'm sure that's got Columbus, Ohio very pleased.
The one thing that I was looking for more than anything else was for the HBC to turn to Coach Myers and sit there, tear off his Florida Gators golf shirt, have an Orlando Apollos golf shirt on underneath it, and throw a championship ring right in his face and sit there and go, I want a title on this field. How about you? I would have loved Orlando Apollo's smack from him. So that reminds me, I need to see if Orlando Apollo's championship gear does exist. And if anybody knows where it exists, and if I can get a championship ring, let me know.
Well, you can probably
on Twitter.
You can probably get that championship game ring or the championship ring at Dollar General. I'm sure they're the ones that supplied the championship rings for the AF.
I will take it.
Now, one other note, if I may, the turnover chain is now the 305 chain.
That's so bad. With
2,207 grams of gold.
So
and white sapphires.
Why?
Because it's Miami. But
so
now
bad.
the offense has a reward as well. They have touchdown rings, which are just as gaudy with orange and green sapphires.
And they couldn't even spell them right. They had them reversed. One of the stacks. It's like 2 sets of brass knuckles. One says Hura and the other says Canes.
Yep.
And they couldn't even spell it right. There was one instance where the 2 guys were wearing they had the brass knucks reversed, and so it was Canes Hura, like Wilkie said. Seriously, they couldn't even spell it right. Of course, being the Florida State alum on the show, I could say something about that, but I'm going to bite my tongue.
Let's talk about a better game.
Please. Surely.
Does it involve jewelry?
It may or it may not, since probably a lot of us didn't actually get to see the game since it was played out in Hawaii. But that was Arizona and Hawaii.
I watched it.
Could only be termed a shootout that ended on one of the crazier plays that you'll ever see.
Yep.
When Khalil Tate got tackled on the 1-yard line after running for about 45 yards as the clock was winding down to 0 and his team trailing by 5 points. Hawaii would win the game 45-40 at home. A lot more fun to watch.
And if you watch that play, he had plenty of time, and then as the protection basically deteriorated, no receiver was getting open, and he was trying his best not to cross the line of scrimmage, and all of a sudden he made a decision to go, and he had an alley, but all of a sudden Hawaii was able to make the play before he crossed the goal line. So
Tate. They're going to take their shot here. 5 seconds. He can go. He can go. He can do this. He's going to have to lead.
It's Armstrong, and Hawaii wins by a yard.
So yeah, it was the craziest play of the game. But here's a crazy stat for you, because Hawaii, in every possession, offensive possession in this game, they either scored or committed a turnover.
Yeah, that's not easy to do either.
So that's 14 possessions, 8 scores, 6 turnovers. That's strong.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
strong.
Just look at the line for Hawaii quarterback Cole McDonald, who's probably one of the better quarterbacks that you haven't heard of. McDonald, 29 for 41, 378, 4 TDs, and 4 interceptions.
Yep.
And then Siobhan Cordero came in toward the end of the game and really put on a show. He only, let's see, as my computer locks up here, as
Like
I'm trying to find out.
5 of 7.
No, he's 5 of
completions.
7, and he threw a touchdown. And now there's speculation on the Hawaiian Islands that there might be a quarterback battle going on. They're both pretty good quarterbacks, but Cole McDonald, I had mentioned in the debrief, as a quarterback nobody's really heard of that's got some talent. But on the Arizona side, Khalil Tate, I'm just wondering if there is something going on inside that Arizona locker room, or if there is some disconnect between Kevin Sumlin and Khalil Tate. Because again, Khalil Tate was the Khalil Tate of last year, where he was kind of not taking off and running.
Oh, he still ran for 108 yards, though. Most of them coming on that.
Well, that's because I think in the second half that something clicked in his head that he's got to be the Khalil Tate of 2017.
Yeah.
And that's where Arizona's offense really started to roll, and he started to complete passes as well. He didn't have a bad game, but I just think there's some disconnect there that, I think it's going to really kind of poison Arizona's season. I mean, this is a winnable game for Arizona. I thought it was going to be a tough go because you're going to have of the travel requirements. And I thought Hawaii was a much better team than people were giving them credit for, especially that offense. And it turned out to be the case. But, I'm just wondering if there's trouble in Tucson.
Right now, for me, the easiest play on that board was the total. The total 71.5. The number had gone from, I want to say, from 11.5 down to about 10 in a lot of different places. And I thought that a double-digit favorite for me was something to avoid. But when the total's at 71.5, and that pretty much stayed the whole time, they made that in the third quarter. That was the easiest play on the board.
Yeah. By the way, Khalil Tate's backup, Rhett Rodriguez.
Huh? What?
Uh-huh. Hey, Dad.
Dad's not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Dad's in Oxford.
Interesting, nevertheless. You guys want to wrap up the first block here? Or you want to go on a little bit longer? We got a bunch more to talk about here before the show comes to an end.
Well, Hawaii head coach Nick Rolovich made $7,500 with that win because he has a clause in his contract that if he gets a home win against a P5 team, he pockets $7,500. So it's a profitable win.
Oh, wow. Good work,
Good for him.
Good work, Rolo.
Yeah, that's a nice little bonus. We'll go ahead and kind of put a wrap to the first block here on the review. This is the Online Sports Guys, the OSG, talking CFB, college football. He is OSG Nelson. He is Jay Wilkerson 16. I am OSG Phil. We are talking college football. When we come back in a couple of minutes, we're going to talk about some probation times at Mississippi State and some quarterbacks making some last-minute decisions to bail out after losing jobs at the last second. John's favorite subject, the transfer portal. All that more when we come back in 2 minutes. Stay tuned.
The OSG on CFB is on the road for the first full weekend of the college football season. Tailgating live in Jerry World in Dallas. Tigeritaville plus OSG Sports equals I have no idea. I'm John Nelson. It's going to be fun. We'll let you know what's going on for the first full weekend of the college football season from Arlington, Texas. Keep an eye on all of your social media platforms. Like, friend, be a part of the conversation at OSG Sports on all of our social media platforms for details.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
If you want to scale a mountain, buy boots. If you want to turn your crush into something more, say hi. At Country Financial, we know protecting the things you love and preparing for tomorrow start with simple steps. So we help you take small steps today with insurance and financial services that can have a big impact on your family's future.
For all your home, auto, and life insurance needs, call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871.
Everybody buckle up. Buckle up.
Let's go.
Buckle up.
Can we go to the store? Mom,
buckle
can we get
up.
some ice cream?
Everybody, buckle up.
A lot goes on in the car, but you're in control. So only move when you hear the click that says they're buckled in. Never give up until they buckle up. Learn more at safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Thanks for sticking around, everybody. This is the review. This is the OSG Talking College Football. A little promotional time here before we get deep dive into the second block of the show. If you're listening to us now, that means you found us on our podcast or on our video podcast, which we're doing both at the same time through the wonders of modern technology. Video podcast on our YouTube channel at OSG Sports. Same place you can find us on both Facebook and Twitter, by the way. For those of you listening on the podcasting side, you've obviously found our home. We broadcast on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network, courtesy of our friends at Spreaker. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, a whole bunch of other places.
You name it.
And don't forget, we've got a phone app. John, you want to show them the phone app? Because that's one of my favorite things to do.
On the video side, as I turn my phone over, there it is right here. So there's your OSG-ness when it comes to the app. There's your info. So available on any and all platforms. And Wilkie's got his. I've got mine. So this is iPhone and Android-ness right here. So go to your store where you do your downloading. Pull the apps, and there you go.
Look up OSG Sports.
Download them both. Download them all.
We'll be right there. Guys, coming back here to talk a little bit more college football. Some big news coming out of Starkville, Mississippi, as the NCAA kind of dropped the hammer on the Bulldogs with a 3-year probation after an investigation concluded that one of the tutors aided 10 members of the football team and a member of the basketball team during a chemistry course last year.
I'm shocked.
Yeah. Considering everything that's going on these days in the high-stakes world of college athletics, is this a big deal or is this kind of nitpicking a little bit?
Go ahead, Wilkie.
Well, to me, it's more nitpicking than anything because I'm looking at what penalties, and it's really kind of a slap on the wrist. So some reduction of scholarships for not only football, for men's basketball as well, but visits and that kind of thing. But they're still going to go to a bowl game. They're still going to get TV exposure, and the men's basketball team is still eligible to play in the tournaments. So just really it's visits, reduction of scholarships. It's not like in the old days when TV appearances were taken away from you and
You couldn't go
which,
to a bowl game or
I
anything
mean,
like that.
now would be so damn prohibitive for the programs because of the TV exposure you get now. So, you know, I think it's really almost much ado about nothing.
John, your thoughts?
Thanks, Dan Mullen et al. I mean, it's honestly, I'm not surprised by any of it. The fact that it's a slap on the wrist isn't surprising. To Wilkie's point, when it comes to the financial nature of it all, that's why I don't think that you're going to see anything that is truly crippling for any program.
Not anymore.
No, short of something SMU like, which I would have liked to have seen happen perhaps at Penn State with what we saw happen there. If it's not going to happen at Penn State, and if it's not going to happen at USC, it's probably going to happen to a Go 5 so they can sit there and say, look what we did. We enforced something. It won't be with a Power 5 school ever again unless it is something truly earth-shaking like Southern Methodist. But, yeah, I mean, it is what it is at this point. And what was the scene in Stripes when they're all sitting around the table talking a little bit about themselves, and Francis Sawyer is talking about making sure that nobody touched their stuff or I'll kill you, and the other soldier in basic training goes like this and goes, woo.
Any of you guys call me Francis, and I'll kill you.
Ooh. And Sawyer goes, you just made the list, buddy? That's what this was to me. Ooh. Nothing more.
And don't forget, lighten up, Francis.
Lighten up, Francis.
Exactly. But unfortunately, the NCAA doesn't need to lighten up, but they're doing that anyway.
Yes, but it does give me an excuse to transition to the next subject of the show today, and that's also involves Mississippi State and Brother John's favorite subject, the transfer portal.
Scotty, beam me up.
And the active verb portaling. Yay.
Word comes out of Mississippi State on this past Thursday, the day that they named transfer Tommy Stevens as the starting quarterback, that quarterback Ketion Thompson, I'm probably not even saying that right, Ketion Thompson, has put his name in the transfer portal the next day because he wasn't named the starter.
Grow up.
It's Keon Thompson. And he was the backup for Nick Fitzgerald last year.
Mm-hmm.
He thought he had made he thought he was the next in line. And then Tommy Stevens shows up, and Tommy Stevens comes from Penn State. He knows Joe Moorhead's offense pretty intimately, and that helped him win the job. And so Thompson now is in this. We're going to see this. We're going to see these guys who think they should have won the job getting in the transfer portal and moving on. It's a precedent I think we can say was set last year by Clemson. And so we're going to see more and more of this when quarterbacks who kind of feel like they've done what you have to do to earn the number one spot.
I've been
don't
wrong,
get it.
and I can't have my job, so I'm going to leave.
Yeah,
because it happened again at Washington, where the Huskies named Georgia transfer Jacob Eason as their starting quarterback for their Week 1 game against Eastern Washington.
Shocking.
And on the heels of that, Jake Hayner, last year's backup to Jake Browning, he decided he's going to go run away and hit the transfer portal as well.
So over this whole thing.
Yes, really.
Over it. I'm over it. Over it. Oy.
Are you over it, John?
I'm over it. For those of you watching on the video side, I'm over it. Portaling. Just look. Just turn it into abject. Just turn them all loose. I'm to that point. Look, just go. You don't want to be here? Go. Free agency. Take it and run. I give you one. You get one as a free agent. You get one as a free. Then if you want to do it again, this one's on you. Then you sit out for a year. It is fatiguing. I would love to have a number for how many individuals decided that they were going to go portaling And how many of them also, after portaling the first time, got frustrated and reportaled? And I guess I just created a new word for those who've portaled more than once. It's reportaling. But look, I'm just to the point to where, look, the NCAA, their logic in some of the cases, and we've covered it on the show, some of the cases for allowing immediate eligibility and then not allowing immediate eligibility are just as random as it gets. So yeah. I'm just to the point to where send them all loose, let them do whatever, and turn it into the Wild West, wilder than it is now, and just let it ride, and then whatever happens, happens. It's pretty much the Wild West anyway. Just send them all loose. Open the gates.
I thought the original intent of the whole thing was for them to at least have some sort of legitimate reason as to why they were leaving to go somewhere else, other than the fact that they just couldn't win the job.
Yeah.
Well, how many things like this have where the original intent has been expanded to what we're seeing now? That if you don't like the situation you're in, well, I'm going to move on to something else. But I can't blame them, because if you're not liking a situation at your work, you're free to explore a different job, a different profession. So if you're a college athlete and you have the opportunity, it didn't work out and you think you should be the starting quarterback, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't examine the possibility of being re-recruited to transfer to a different school. The loyalties now are not to a program or to the university. It's to
It's to the self.
How do you increase your marketability? Is now entered the equation in college athletics. And so they're going to move on. And when you've decided that the Power 5 football, these 5 conferences are going to be above everybody else, and basically they're developing kids for NFL careers, this is what you're going to get. And so if it doesn't work out for you, and it doesn't matter if you're a quarterback, you can be a punter for all I know. You get a better opportunity somewhere else, they're re-recruiting you. Go for it. Here's the thing: where does commitment come in? Am I committed to this program? College coaches it's hard enough for them not only to win ball games, but convince these athletes, high school athletes, to choose their school, earn a scholarship. So when does the commitment start? If you don't get your way, okay, I'm not committed to you anymore, I'm moving on to something else. Mm-hmm. And now college coaches are going to have to deal with that. It's made a hard job almost impossible.
Yeah, and that was the question I was going to ask both of you. If I'm a coach at a Power 5 school and I've got one of these guys knocking on my door saying, I'd like to come play for you, if I've already got a quarterback, why do I even give this guy the time of day?
Yeah, what's in it for me?
If he couldn't win the job at Washington and he's coming and knocking on my door at Arizona or at Colorado or Nebraska or someplace like that, why do I give him the time of day if I can go recruit my own freshman?
Yeah, that's true. There's that point as well. It's really a slippery slope right now, but college football free agency is here, and I think we've just seen the first of it. I'm just wondering, though, as a cause and effect here, how many coaches are going to want to stay in the college game? How many are going to want to go to the NFL where they have personnel? They have personnel people there that's their job. Mm-hmm. Or is that going to be coming to college football? Are we going to see, we've got recruiting directors already. Is that going to become more like an NFL personnel department where you're going to have 10 scouts there that are there not only to recruit players, but to recruit other schools people they think might be entering the transfer portal? That's the thing. I think that's what we're getting to. It wouldn't shock me if in the next 5 to 10 years, some coaches are just going to throw their hands up and try to get jobs in the NFL because it might be easier to coach at the professional level as far as the profession and not having to deal with these young kids who just can't make a decision or a good decision.
And at least in the NFL, you've got guys that are under contract, and you know there's a better than average chance that they're probably going to have to play that contract out before they can walk away from you.
Right.
In the college game, basically, if what it's kind of coming down to, at least with the quarterbacks at this point in time, if you're not going to let me be the guy, well, then I'm just going to take my ball and go someplace else. And that's really what we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. That's exactly what you're dealing with. You're dealing with 18, 19, 20-year-old, and they're just not mature enough to make those kind of decisions. Look, one play away from being out there is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I said it before. I said it last week, and I've said it in several of the columns that I've written on theonlinesportsguys.com, which is
excellent plug, sir. Nicely done.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our daily blog that we write about the variety of things going on in the wide, wonderful world of sports. And these guys have so many people in their ears at this point in their lives telling them that they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And if you're a quarterback, chances are you're probably believing that. And I mean, when you're talking about an 18 or a 19-year-old that is dominated at a high school level, when you walk into a college campus, you may be one of about 4 or 5 quarterbacks that are just as good, if not better than you are. And that realization for some kids doesn't go over as well as it does others. And that's really what it boils down to. If you're a 19-year-old who's dominated at every single level you've ever played at, all of a sudden you're going up against a 21-year-old who's actually better than you are. What do you do if you can't get up? You can't beat him. I mean, look at what happened at Georgia. Jake Fromm's chased off basically 2 guys, Jacob Eason and Justin Fields, both starting quarterbacks at Power 5 schools. And Fromm wasn't somebody who was the number 1 high school recruit. He was a good high school football player, but he wasn't the guy, whereas both of them were. What does that tell you?
It tells me that Jake Fromm, with his work ethic and how he was raised in the high school game and at home in Warner Robins, Georgia, was prepared to get out his hard hat, get out his lunch pail. I'm going to go here. I'm going to prove myself. And I'm just going to just simply be the best guy out here. And that's, and I think that what it may do is it may speak volumes more about guys like Eason and Fields than it does about a guy like Jake Fromm. It reinforces what we know about Jake Fromm, but I think it speaks volumes about guys like Eason and Fields.
I totally agree with John. I mean, Jake Fromm has a strong work ethic, comes from a great family. And you see those traits in the Georgia family. And when he got his opportunity, he made the most of it. And there were 2 really talented guys ready to take over if it didn't work out so well. But he played great football. He got Georgia into the national championship game and got him in the SEC title game last year. And he definitely, with all that distraction, with 2 5-star guys that I think probably Georgia fans would rather had as their starting quarterback. He comes in, wins the job, and it's now solidified that he is the man in Athens.
Before we wrap things up on this week's episode of The Review, I wanted to mention something about a coach that we've had a little bit of fun with here in the past, all good-natured, mind you. And that's Liberty University head coach Hugh Freeze, who is on the mend after what could have very easily been a life-threatening staph infection. Freeze he was released from the hospital after staying a little over a week. The school had announced back on August 13th that he was dealing with back spasms and couldn't participate in practice. Turns out there was a lot more to it, and he had emergency surgery at the University of Virginia a week ago because the staph infection had gotten into his bloodstream. Yikes.
Yeah, very, very scary. And it's good to know that the doctors were able to go in and at least do their job. And now Coach Freeze is healing, and pretty soon he'll be able to coach the Flames. And this is something he's had to rehab from. After what all went down at Ole Miss and all the stories, and he's rehabbed from that. He got an opportunity, and I know he's itching to get out there on the sidelines and prove that he can win there.
Yeah, Friesel is apparently not going to miss any time as the head coach, although he's not quite able to get out on the field just yet. His staff's been meeting with him daily to keep him updated with what's going on, and he gets a live feed from Liberty's daily practice. And the plan is at this point for him to coach from the where was it? He was going to be coaching up in the coaching's booth.
Okay.
For the first game, where the Flames actually are hosting Syracuse.
Yeah, they are. Syracuse is coming to Lynchburg, Virginia.
Go figure.
That's an interesting home and home for Dino Babers and Hugh Freeze.
To say the least. You guys got anything else you want to talk about here before we wrap things up on the show?
Well, we've got a trophy game and rivalry show coming up.
Yeah.
Attaboy. Excellent plug. There you go. Keep going.
Where we are going to relaunch that this week. We got some really good rivalries coming up. Colorado State, and the Holy War between BYU and Utah. And we've got a couple interviews from that rivalry, one from the Utah side, one from the BYU side. And it's really interesting how that rivalry has evolved over the years. And after talking to the individual from Utah, Dan Sorensen, almost the way he described that rivalry is almost a carbon copy of the Iron Bowl. You have to listen to find out.
See, there's
Can't
your
wait
excellent
to hear that
tease
come
right
up
there.
over the course of the week.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
So we'll drop that sometime Tuesday night or Wednesday morning as BYU and Utah play on Thursday night in Provo. So we got that coming up in the college football debrief as well.
All right, guys. I think that ought to wrap things up for this week. You have been listening to the review. Oh, wait. Got to check out the shirts. What do we got this week, John?
National Champs 1998 Tulane Green Wave right here.
Oh, wow.
Tommy Bowden would be happy.
Yep. And Sean King.
I don't have a shirt, but I am representing the alma mater with the Georgia Southern Tervis tumbler.
There you go. There you go.
All right.
He's got the banner for the office. There you go.
Yeah, that certainly fits the bill right there.
That a boy. Bob Stitt last week, and Stitt happens this week celebrating a mythical national championship in New Orleans.
Good stuff.
Next time we are together for this show, guys, we will have a full week of college football in our rearview mirrors. Lots to talk about. Make sure you stay tuned, as next week's review show, we will be talking about week one's games, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. So, you want to say goodbye first, John? You want to say goodbye to everybody?
Goodbye to everybody.
Wilkie, say aloha.
Aloha.
And I will say goodbye as well. Thanks for tuning in. We are the Online Sports Guys. This is the OSG on CFB. You have been listening to the review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.